Hello everyone, my name is Marylize Biubwa and I am a patient of mental health. And today I want to delve into the topic of mental health mainly because I feel like with everything that is happening across the world, many people are struggling with different things, me included. Probably the only difference as of now is that it's something that I've been struggling with for a while now. I got my diagnosis in September 2018, and even before that, it was a struggle that I dealt with a lot, but I never knew that I was someone who was struggling with mental health. And so, because of that, I never really quite knew much or did anything about it. If you're new here, my name is Marylize Biubwa. I am a human rights defender, I'm a feminist, I'm an activist, I'm a radical, queer, intersectional feminist, of course, black, as you may see. And the content I share here mostly is about the LGBTQ community, primarily because I'm an LGBTQ person, and then basically just about my activism, my feminism, the work that I do, and from time to time, of course, intentionally bringing guests on here who will shed more light about these issues that I like to talk about. But today, I'm going to talk about mental health. If you're new here, please remember to subscribe to my channel. Remember to tell a friend who you have, 2, 3, 4. Tell them about anything that you've watched here that you've benefited from. And if you're not new here, thank you again for stopping by, and I hope you didn't just stop by to watch, but I hope you subscribed. Now, many times I get to be asked about my mental health journey, and truth be told, even today while I'm going to talk about my mental health journey, it's not something that I can entirely talk about because there are things I'm still not yet comfortable with talking about. But I'm still going to try to have that dialogue, have that conversation about mental health, because I feel like it's very fundamental, like I said, with everything that is going on in the world currently, with coronavirus, with what is happening in America currently. Then a lot of things are not working for many people, and many people are affected mentally, be it reliving traumatic moments, be it how corona has put us in situations where we have to stay at home. Some of us are stuck with abusers, some of us are stuck with people who have contributed to our traumas and everything. And so I understand how this period can be a really hard period. And like I said, my journey with mental health has been for long. First of all, being a survivor of rape, I have been the kind of person, and it's something that happened when I was pretty young, but I have been the kind of person who hardly talked about my experiences. Not because I hadn't talked about them at all, but I think the maiden people that I told about my experiences did not treat my experiences the way any experience of abuse should be treated. And I think these would communicate to many people who have had to go through any type of sexual abuse by people who are close to them. It could be their family members, it could be people they're married to. Then you realize you don't really have 100% right to speak about your experiences, because then most of the time you'd be told you can't do that, you have to protect the name of the family. And so for me, I think that is what happened, and I was pretty young, I didn't know much about that. These are some of the things that I've only been able to talk about 17, 18 years later, 16 years later. So pretty much when it was happening, it's not something that I knew about, but I was just there. I was just being a kid and everything, and being a kid comes with being told don't do this, and then you don't do it because then you don't know any better. But also people who are adults in your life kind of sort of have a right to make decisions about your life, pretty much, because even constitutionally you're not yet legal to make decisions for that kind of things. And so there's that belief that whatever decision that they're making is for your own good. So for me, it has taken, not like it's any different now, it's much better now because I've learned to cope with things a little better now, but it has taken a lot of sleepless nights, a lot of nights that I cry myself to sleep. And it's the kind of crying where you cry and you have to do it in a very, I don't know what word to use here, but in a way that no one would get to know that you're doing it, and your soul bleeds, and how you interact with people kind of gets affected. How you express yourself is affected. How you talk to people is affected. How you treat people is affected, because then you do not know how the next person is going to treat you, and so you'd rather not assume that they'll treat you nicely, and then you end up being a victim once again. And I think the saddest thing is that it's not something that happened once. And you'll notice within my conversation and everything, there is a lot of information that I'll not really reveal, because then it might sound crazy, but I still have people who, despite the fact that we cut ties, we no longer talk and everything, these are people I still care about, and I would want to protect them in whatever way, shape or form. It has nothing to do with protecting the abusers, because I wouldn't care less about the abusers. It's just acknowledging that where I am right now, it's not like anything legal can be done. And anytime I have one-on-one discussions and have conversations about these kinds of scenario, I talk about the abusers and all that type of stuff. But on here, it's not about that. It's just about protecting the people who were secondary abusers to the situation, but are still people I care about. And yeah, and it is a long story that if you watch my coming out videos, which I have part 1 and part 2, you can get a bit hint about my coming out story and what it entails and everything. But yeah, pretty much that. But it has taken a lot of me just trying to learn to heal from the situation, to learn to think of the situation from a point where it's okay for things to happen to you. Well, it's not okay, but they happened, and you can't go back in time and change anything. If I could go back in time, I probably would go back and change that, but currently I can't go back in time and change anything. So everything happened, and I'm not grateful that it happens, because most of the time then we find ourselves in a situation where it's like we want to say, I'm grateful it happened because it has made me become the person that I am. I'm not grateful that it happened, because if it hadn't happened, it would have saved me the turmoil that I had to go through. It would have saved me the pain that I've had to suffer through. It would have saved me money that took a good Samaritan helping me with it, to seek medical attention, to seek mental health treatment, to see a psychiatrist, to be treated and everything, to just deal with the emotions of it all. There's a lot that could have been saved, and I could have been many more steps further as a human being if these things didn't happen, but they did, and it is what it is. And so yeah, it has been quite a huge number of years of pain and suffering and everything. Up to September 2018, I had really not put a finger to the fact that all the struggles that I had were mental health struggles. I had not put a finger to simple things like I go back into myself and into my shell many times and oftenly, mainly because it was a protective mechanism for me. It is a way in which I protected myself, because I really never felt like the world is a safe space for me, and so going back to myself and within myself was the only solution to keep things to myself, to not talk about how I'm feeling, to not express my emotions about something, to not even air my views about a topic and a subject, were things that I used to do mainly because I had to protect myself. Now, the flip side of that is that I became this child who, even up to the time that I grew up, I was talkative. And my talkativeness was not because I really wanted to talk. It was because it was also a coping mechanism. I had to talk because silence hurt. Silence made me deal with a lot of trauma that I wish I had shared with someone, so that I can learn and be helped to understand how to deal with the trauma better. But because I had literally no one to share that with, then I ended up dealing with the trauma by myself. And so for me, talking was a way of protecting myself, where if I talk, I wouldn't have to talk about things in the past, but for now I can speak life to a situation that will prevent me from getting into an experience that I've once before had that hurt me. And so for me, there was that part, and the talking was really top layer kind of talking. I didn't talk from a point where I expressed what I feel. I didn't talk from a point where I let people know where I stand with my emotions and everything. I talked to just basically just protect myself and all that type of stuff. So there has been that. I have struggled with that a lot. I've struggled with feelings of inadequacy. I've struggled with feelings of not deserving or not being worth of good things in life. I've struggled with feelings of being okay with people stepping on me and taking advantage of me. I've struggled with emotions of just coming second in everything, coming second or last or third or whatever number that is not first. And as I've come to learn growing up, in your life you have to be the number one priority, and then other people have to come after you. But this is something that I've only managed to learn recently after I began taking the journey of healing as an individual and pursuing mental wellness and how that looks like. That's when I started learning that. But before that, I was the kind of person who I could literally die. I still can't die for people right now, but I've learned to appreciate that I can only die for you if I can do just as much, if not more, for myself. If I can die for myself, then I can die for you. The only reason I'll die for you is if I've resolved that dying for you would mean dying for myself as well. So it's me coming to terms with all that kind of information and everything. But before then, it was a struggle, and to topple that off with being young, then it definitely was not an easy experience, because the world is really cruel to young people. Not only does the world see young people as a liability, as people who don't know what they want, as people who are not settled, as people who are not smart, as people who can't figure things out, as people who can't think and make decisions for themselves. I had to deal with all these feelings of inadequacy, incompleteness, not being enough, not, all these types of things. And you would know, especially if you're a woman or someone who identifies as a woman, you would know how hard it is to have those feelings atop being a woman. Because then I think it magnifies even further, because then the society is like, the claws of the societies are out to get women who know they deserve better and everything. So the claws are happy to experience a woman who not only knows they're a woman, but they also know they're not good enough, they're inadequate and everything. So all those things. And I think in the process, I think the worst thing that I suffered in the process of dealing with those emotions and not really just sitting and processing those emotions is the exploitation that comes with it. Because you don't talk, people assume things on your behalf. Because you don't talk about how you feel exactly, people make decisions on things about things on your behalf. Because you don't express yourself that much, then people assume the expression is enough for you. It caters for you, it caters for your needs and all that type stuff. So in 2018 September, as I said, is when I got a diagnosis. First I saw a therapist, and it was helping, but it was not working. Not because the therapist is bad, she's just about the best therapist that I know out here. And we tried having that conversation and trying to seek, well, we didn't get to a point where we had to seek other alternatives, because even we couldn't tell if it's because of the the methods and mechanisms that she was using that it was not working or anything like that. So pretty much going to a psychiatrist was a referral from her and a recommendation from her, because then through a psychiatrist I'll be able to get a diagnosis first to know what I'm dealing with, and then when I get to know what I'm dealing with, then after seeing a psychiatrist for a period of time, we can be able to tell if we can resort to alternative ways of doing therapy, or I'll be healed, or whatever it is that will happen. Now, going to see a therapist, of course, I had to go do the test where you can be able to tell what kind of mental struggles you have and all that type of stuff. And that came, and that's the time I was diagnosed with PTSD, ADHD, and anxiety and depression. Severe anxiety, because at that point it was really bad, where even just being around two people was a hard thing for me to do. Being around myself, just by myself, was hard, and being around people was hard. So that was like me experiencing anxiety through and through, and everything pretty much gave me anxiety and all that type of stuff. And up to that point is when I was diagnosed. I was prescribed for medication. That was I'd say the best and the worst thing that happened, because then the thing about medication is that when you're given medication, is that you sort of kind of become reliant to that. And for a period of time I was reliant. I was reliant because I needed medication for my mind to clear up. I needed medication to even gather the confidence to leave the house. I needed medication to even just be comfortable around people, even just for a second. I needed medication to figure out how to interact with people, because then life as it is, it wasn't an option for me to just sit and do nothing. I had to go out and be able to seek any type of help that I'll be able to get, or be able to figure out how to work things around, because just about this time I was also struggling with the fact that, of course, I'm not employed, but that time I had just exited staying on the streets and everything. And so while I was getting a lot of help from women who have since become some family, some the people I hold most dear and everything, because they were looking out for me during these times and everything, I also wasn't, the conflict of just sitting and doing nothing was really betraying the whole process of me trying to heal. Because then how do I get rid of the feelings of inadequacy if I can't even go out of the house and do something productive and say make money that is enough to even settle a single utility bill in my house? So there's those things that you're struggling with, there's those struggles that are never ending. And if you can imagine, if I'm thinking about a single utility bill, you can imagine how food was a privilege, how security is a privilege I couldn't afford, how like everything seemed like a luxury. The only thing that didn't seem like a luxury was the air that I was breathing, because I was alive, and that also kind of seemed hard. And during this period, probably something that I need to note, during this period, I've struggled with suicide a lot, which is another video that I'll do separately about suicide and everything. And for me, I probably will take this opportunity to just speak to anyone who is struggling with having suicidal thoughts, or have attempted suicide not once, not twice, just as much times as you have. I just want to tell you, first of all, that you're very valid. I want to tell you that you matter. I want to tell you that your feelings of whatever it is that you're going through are very valid. Another thing that I want to tell you is, try finding help. Don't think about the people you care about. Don't think about the people you love. Most of the time when we analyze keenly the reason we are even at a place where we are contemplating things like suicide, the people we love and care about are written all over in those thoughts, in those attempts, in everything. And so don't think of looking for help because of the people you care about and everything. I do not know your story. I'll not sit here and pretend that I understand what you're going through. I can only understand what I went through. But in me coming from a point where I don't understand what you went through, I'm just telling you, you're good enough to stay alive for yourself. You're good enough to go out there and seek help, medical help, especially on mental health for yourself. You're good enough to stay alive and to build yourself as an individual, not because you matter to other people, but because the first person you should ever matter to is yourself. So for me, I'm coming to you to tell you, receive a lot of virtual hugs. I am reachable on Instagram, Marylize_Biubwa. I'm reachable on Facebook, Biubwa Marylize, and I'm reachable on, where else? I think Facebook and Instagram are the best platforms to find me on. On Twitter as well. My Twitter handle is @queerly_so. So you can reach me there. And on those platforms, feel free to ask me questions, even if it's in my DMs. Feel free to ask me, which psychiatrist did you see, the rates in which you can do. And again, this is information that I can provide on different videos on if you wanted to see psychiatrists and therapists, what are my recommendations and everything. I'll give all that information in a different video. But I just want you to know I'm here, and if you need anyone to talk to, I am here. If you need help but you don't know what avenues to pursue, just reach out to me and I'll be able to provide that information for you. But moving forward with what I was saying, these are things that I battled with. I struggled with suicide, several attempts of it. Looking back, sometimes I always sit, like I said, it's still something that I'm struggling with. Sometimes I still think maybe I should have gone through with it, because sometimes you're dealing with things that take you really low and everything, and you wonder why it didn't work then and everything, because if it would have worked, you wouldn't have been here to deal with all of that. But sometimes I'm also really grateful because I'm getting to learn me in ways that are beautiful, in ways that are magnificent, in ways that I am appreciating myself more. And in learning that, then I'm appreciative of the fact that none of these suicidal attempts worked, because if they would have worked, then I wouldn't have had an opportunity to experience myself in the way that I'm experiencing myself now. And for me, I'm appreciative of that, because that has allowed me to see myself as the human being that I am, to value myself as the important human being that I am, to trust myself, to validate myself, to speak out for myself. And given the work that I do, it has even given me more power to be able to speak about other people and on behalf of other people, because then by just merely knowing myself, valuing myself, seeing my self-worth, seeing all that I am deserving of, has made me realize just how much human beings deserve. And because of that, I'm able to go in every fight that I put forward, in every fight that I have to fight, I'm going into it appreciating that I deserve to fight for myself in that way. And I feel like everyone, if not for anything, then just for the pleasure of it, everyone has a right to experience this emotion in their lifetime, where you can just be able to say, I met myself while I was living. So if nowadays I'm at a place where I normally say, if I die today, I know I lived, because the reason I say I lived is because I was able to meet myself. And I think that is the most beautiful thing that has ever happened in my life. I've met myself, and even though there's still perspective of myself that I still don't love, because I still struggle with a lot of things. Just a couple of days I was really down, struggling with just, the punches that life throws at you and everything. But despite all that, I'm grateful that I was able to be here long enough to meet myself, because I feel like that's all that I was put in this world to do, to meet myself. And I feel like every human being is put in this world to do that, to meet themselves. And so the reason I'm calling out on you and telling you that you actually deserve to stay here is because you do deserve to meet yourself. Nobody deserves to live with the person they've been taught to be. Everyone deserves to be with the person they know they are. And the beautiful thing about meeting yourself is that with the struggles and everything that you have, when you finally are able to meet yourself, everything begins to make sense. Not because you need to struggle, but you begin to realize, up to this point, I needed to stay here and experience this. And so for me, that's all that I'll say. Stay because you need to meet yourself. Stay because you deserve to meet yourself. Stay because when you meet yourself, you'll realize how beautiful you are, and how deserving you are, and how worthy you are of this life. And that in itself is the most profound ever reason to stay alive and to live. I have since gotten out of medication and drugs. It's not yet a year, but it's almost there. And for me, I think, like I said earlier, using drugs has been both a good thing and a bad thing. A good thing because it helped me maneuver. A bad thing because at some point I became reliant of the drugs, and so without drugs, if I skipped a day, everything will just go haywire, and I'll sink back into the depths of depression and anxiety, into just dealing with all these things and everything. And for me, up to the time I made a decision that I want to go through the emotions, I want to do away with the drugs, I want to learn how to figure myself out and not rely on drugs so much, was because when I found myself in situations where I can't take drugs, mainly because, sometimes you find yourself in a place where drugs run out and you don't have the money to buy the drugs anymore, and you've asked for help for so long that it feels horrendous to ask for money for drugs. And I tell you for a fact, uh, getting drugs for mental health, any kind of mental health ailment, it's very expensive. You're speaking up to 10,000 of shillings that you need, of Kenya shillings, that you need to get just a dose for like 2-3 weeks thereabout. And for me, I think that was one of the reasons in which I really wanted to get off the drugs, because I was tired of asking for help. I was tired of every time just telling someone my drugs are out, they're gone, and I do not know what to do, and I'm struggling. And all those struggles, all those thoughts of suicide, all those thoughts of inadequacy and everything are there with me. And I would go for those episodes for like a week and a half, 2 weeks. And I wouldn't know what to do with that. And so for me, up to the time that I told myself I need to begin withdrawing from the drugs, I waited until I had drugs for like, again, thanks to friends, I was able to buy drugs for like a month and a half or so. So then I put those drugs there. But I told myself, I'll be taking these drugs when it's really bad. So I'll take them today, when I'm really struggling and everything, and especially when I have things to do and deadlines to meet and accomplishments to achieve and everything. That's when I would take the drugs. But I told myself, for as long as I'm under no pressure to leave the house and everything, I'll not take the drugs. I'll stay in this house, I'll sit there, and I will cry through it, and I'll feel the emotions, and it will hurt, because emotional pain is painful. But I decided I'll deal with those emotions, and I sat and I dealt with those emotions, and it went on. And I'll tell you for a fact, while you're dealing with all these emotions, I also dealt with emotions of physical emotions, in the sense that when you're withdrawing from drugs, especially mental health drugs, you struggle a lot. You become nauseated all the time. Every time you feel like throwing up, you're not gonna throw up. Hardly do you throw up. Sometimes you do throw up for sure, but hardly do you throw up. And it's just a frustrating process to just keep gagging through and through. And for me, I struggled a lot with that as well. So there is the part where you're struggling emotionally, and then you're struggling physically, and then it just all becomes a jumbled up situation to deal with and everything. And so I was that person, but I made that sacrifice. I decided to suffer like that so that I can be able to minimize my need, if not eradicate completely the need for drugs and everything. And right now that I'm getting into almost 1 year, like I said, I'd say it has worked, but not entirely. I'm now completely off drugs, but I think the hardest thing is I can never predict when I have my low moments and my high moments. And the thing about that is that the low moments hit when you least expected, when you still had things to achieve and goals to achieve and everything. And I've been working so hard to just focus on making my rainbow days more than my gloomy days, than my sad days, than my dark days. And while that has not been working perfectly, it has been working better than it did the first couple of months when I was trying to withdraw from drugs. And so I'm sitting at a place where I'm saying, if it has gotten better compared to when I started, then it can only get better from here. And I'm gonna go through with the journey. Sometimes there's a huge temptation to just go back to drugs and say, fuck it, I just wanna achieve peace and experience peace and everything. But for me, I think it's more peaceful to get to a place where I'm 100% not reliant on drugs, and I can do just fine without them. Also, withdrawing from drugs has taught me to find better coping mechanism, where I now know better to tell when I'm sinking. I know better to tell when I'm having those sad days, those anxiety days, all those things that are affecting me. I know better how to tell those days. And because I know better how to tell, then I know better how to cope with them, because then you come up with coping mechanism that would feed into ensuring that you deal with that situation more appropriately than you would have if you didn't know if it was going to happen to begin with. And so for me, that has been my journey with mental health. I'm still struggling. There's a lot of things that contribute that I've never even had the courage to speak about, and probably with time I'll be able to do that. But I just want you to know that You deserve better. You don't deserve to be around people who hurt you, regardless of who they are. And I know the struggle of staying away from those people is even harder, but I tell you for a fact that it's worth it. You deserve peace, you deserve tranquility, you deserve serenity, you deserve to be happy. Whatever that takes, whoever needs to be affected by that for you to achieve that, as long as you get to achieve your peace, that's all that you should be working towards. Because then, like I said earlier again, when we look at our traumas, the people we love and care for are written all over our traumas. They're the people who have contributed to it. It could be primarily or secondarily, but it's still these people who have contributed to it. And dare I tell you, you deserve better. And if better means getting rid of these people who come to you, who have been in your life all your life, then get rid of them for your peace. Because we are all human beings. We all were probably created for a purpose. And if that person's purpose was to hurt you, then it has to become your purpose that you don't have to stay around them. You don't have at all. You don't owe anyone staying around them, even if they're hurting you. And this maybe it's just a segue, but to just say, I'm calling out also on sisters across the world who are stuck in relationships with people who are abusing them and everything. I can never speak life to such an experience because I've never been in a relationship. First of all, I've never been married to a man or been stuck, come we stay, or any type of situation with a man to know the type of abuse you go through, so I can't speak life to that situation. I've never also been in a relationship that was physically abusive, a bit emotional abuse. Yes, I've been in that type of a relationship. And there are also times I also stayed in those type of relationship because with struggling with inadequacy, you feel like these people are doing you a favor. But I'll tell you for a fact, live. You are worth better than that. There's someone out there. If your urge is to be in a relationship with someone, there's someone out there who is more deserving of you, he's gonna be more appreciative of your love, who's gonna be appreciative of you as a human being, and who's gonna protect you from all that and take care of you in that way. And he's gonna understand that you don't deserve to go through pain just because you're with them. And so leave that relationship, leave that marriage, leave that union, leave that situation, leave anything that involves you suffering and going through any kind of emotional, psychological, physical pain. You deserve better. You deserve to live a pain-free life. Whatever kind of pain it is, you deserve to live free from it. And so thank you so much for coming to my YouTube. I'm gonna be having a series of mental health videos to come to share different perspectives. I understand there are many terms that I've touched on today that would remain jargon for people who are not struggling with mental health, but have people who they're caring for who struggle with mental health and everything. And so with time, we are gonna have episodes where we can speak about all these jargon language of mental health and everything, so that we can be able to understand better how to be the people who care about people who are struggling with mental health. Otherwise, thank you so much for stopping by. I really appreciate having you here. And I know you can tell there are times I was really struggling to just stay here and not break down and just keep having this conversation, because for me it's really important and everything. But I want you to know that I did it all for you, because you deserve someone loving on you, regardless of who you are, regardless of where you are, regardless of the situation you are in. You deserve to be loved 100%. And so here is my love to you, telling you that I love you and you deserve better, and seek that help if you need it, because you deserve to meet yourself. Thank you so much. Thank you for stopping by. Again, if you're new here, please remember to subscribe, share it with your friends who will benefit from this, so that they can be able to learn a thing or two, and tell them to subscribe while they're at it. As always, I leave you with, remember to be kind to people around you, especially during these times. And now that we are talking about mental health, everyone is struggling with something. So be kind with people, because you don't know what they're struggling with. But also remember to be kind to yourself. You deserve it. Every time you wake up and you want to beat yourself up for anything, just stop and remember you deserve the best. And be kind to yourself, and smile at that mirror and back at this video when you're watching it, because you deserve to smile as well. it's all part of the package as to why you are here to begin with. So smile, be kind to yourself, and until next time, stay safe. Bye.